Hey man, grab a beer and sit down. I'm gonna tell you this story like we're just shooting the shit. No bullshit, no hero crap. My name's Johnny Ramirez, Sergeant in the U.S. Marine Corps, out of the 1st Marine Raider Battalion at Camp Pendleton. I'm 32 now, looking back on this from January 2026, but back then, in late 2024, I was just a regular grunt who'd seen some action in Afghanistan and Iraq. Thought I knew what tough was. Sandstorms, IEDs, the whole 9 yards, but nothing prepped me for this gig. It all kicked off around mid-November 2024, November 15th to be exact. I got pulled into this special exchange program between the U.S. and Russia. Officially, it was under the banner of counterterrorism cooperation, some post-Cold War thaw bullshit after all the global mess with COVID and Ukraine. But really, it was about us learning from them and vice versa, without spilling any real secrets. No tactics manuals, no classified gear, just raw, hands-on survival stuff. I was picked because of my recon experience, but deep down I was thinking, what the hell did I do to deserve this? Siberia in winter? I'd rather hump a 50-pound ruck through the Mojave again. The flight was a nightmare. Started from San Diego at 06:45 a.m., layover in D.C. around 11:30 a.m., then a long haul to Moscow. Landed there at 7:15 p.m. local time, already dark and freezing. From Moscow, we hopped a domestic flight to Novosibirsk. Stepped off that plane at 11:20 p.m., and the cold hit me like a freight train, minus 25 Celsius already, and that was just the airport. Wind whipping snow across the tarmac, making everything look like a blurry white hell. They loaded me and a couple other exchange guys, 2 Brits and a Canadian, into a beat-up Kamaz truck, canvas top flapping like it was going to tear off. We rolled out at 12:05 a.m., 8 hours bouncing through back roads, deeper into the Taiga forest. No real heat in the cab, just our breath fogging up the windows. I kept rubbing my hands together, thinking, this is nuts. My toes are already numb and we ain't even started. We finally rolled into the camp around 8:25 a.m. Place was tucked away in Krasnoyarsk Krai, about 300 clicks from Irkutsk, dense pine forests stretching forever, blanketed in snow that came up to your knees. No fancy base like Pendleton. This was raw. Wooden barracks with thick logs, a few Quonset huts for gear storage, and a central mess hall that doubled as a briefing room. The perimeter was razor wire and watchtowers, but it felt more like a survival outpost than a fortress. The air smelled like pine resin and frozen earth, sharp enough to sting your lungs every time you breathed. First guy I met was Major Alexei Ivanov, call sign Wolf, means wolf in Russian. He was about 38, built like a tank, with a scar running from his eyebrow down to his cheek, probably from some Chechen scrap. Eyes cold as the snow. Didn't smile, just nodded and sized me up like I was fresh meat. He was Spetsnaz GRU, the real deal. Elite operators who'd been through hell in Syria, Georgia, you name it. Stood there in his Ratnik Arctic camo, fur-lined hood thrown back, not even shivering. Me? I was bundled in my ECWCS gear, still feeling the chill seep through every seam. Volk shook my hand, grip like a vice, and muttered in decent English at 8:30 a.m. sharp, "Welcome, Sergeant Ramirez. You are here to learn or break. Up to you." No small talk, no tour. Just pointed to my bunk in the barracks. It was a long room with maybe 20 cots, each with a thin wool blanket and a pillow that felt like it was stuffed with sawdust. A small wood-burning stove in the corner was cranking, but the heat didn't reach past the first 3 bunks. They gave me the full kit right there at 9 a.m. Ratnik Arctic uniform, layered thermal base, fleece mid-layer, Gore-Tex shell, fur-lined Valenki boots, and a massive white camouflage smock that made me look like a walking snowman. The gloves were thick, but I could already tell they weren't going to keep my fingers from numbing during movement. Volk watched me gear up, arms crossed, and said nothing, just that stare. By 10:15 a.m., they marched us to the mess for breakfast. Borscht, beet soup, steaming hot, black bread, some kind of pickled cabbage, and a shot of vodka that burned going down. Volk raised his glass at 10:25 a.m. and said, "To survive the winter. Drink little. Tomorrow you die if you drink much. I took the shot, felt it warm my chest for about 30 seconds, then the cold rushed right back in. That first day, we didn't do much physical, just acclimation walks around the perimeter at 11:35 a.m. and 2:45 p.m., learning to lay out. The banya, Russian sauna hut, the weapons storage, locked tight, and the frozen lake about a click away they used for immersion drills. Every time I exhaled, my breath froze into little crystals that stuck to my beard. By 4 p.m., the sun was already dropping, and the temperature dipped to -32 Celsius. Lights out was called at 9 p.m., but I couldn't sleep. Lying there in the dark, listening to the wind howl outside and the stove crackle, I kept thinking, what the fuck am I doing here? These guys look at me like I'm soft. Maybe I am. Maybe this whole thing was a mistake. But there was no turning back. The truck wasn't coming until January. That was just the arrival, man. The real shit started the next morning at 5:30 a.m. when the reveille shot cracked through the silence like a gunshot in church. The real hell started the next morning, November 16th at 05:30 a.m. A single crack of a blank round from an AK outside the barracks ripped me out of whatever half-sleep I'd managed. No gentle bugle like back home, just that sharp pop echoing through the trees, followed by Volk's voice barking, "Padyam!" which I figured out quick meant get up. We had maybe 90 seconds in the winter darkness to throw on clothes and haul ass to the parade ground. I was still fumbling with my new Valenki boots when guys were already out the door. By 05:45 a.m., we were lined up in formation, breath clouding like smoke signals in the -32 Celsius air. The wind cut right through the Ratnik layers. Yeah, they gave us the full Arctic kit. Wicking base layer to pull sweat away, thick fleece mid-layer, windproof shell, and that heavy white camo smock on top. Gloves were bulky, but good for grip. Still, my fingers went numb fast. Volk walked the line, eyes scanning like he could see every weakness. He didn't yell like some drill instructors. He just stated facts. Cold kills faster than bullets. Move or freeze. First thing every day, a 10-kilometer run in formation through the snow. Not a jog, a controlled pounding run with boots sinking into fresh powder up to mid-calf. We carried light rucks, maybe 15-20 kilograms, just enough to feel it. I kept up okay at first, lungs burning from the frozen air, but by kilometer 5, my legs felt like lead. The Russians, they ran like it was nothing. Sergeant Dmitri, bear, big guy, beard like a forest, didn't even breathe hard. These fuckers are built different, I thought. Or maybe I'm just soft after too much time in the desert. We finished the run around 6:45 a.m., then 5 minutes to catch our breath before circuit training at 6:50 a.m. No breaks, push-ups, burpees, kettlebell swings with 32-kilogram bells, squat jumps, all in the snow. They did sets until the instructor got bored or you dropped. I managed maybe 80 push-ups before my arms gave out. Bear did 200 like it was a warm-up. Volk watched me struggle and just said, "American, pain is teacher. Listen." No pep talk, no motivation, just truth. Breakfast hit at 8 a.m. sharp in the mess hall. Hot kasha, buckwheat porridge with chunks of butter, black bread, tea so strong it could strip paint, and sometimes meat from a can. Calories were high, around 5,000 a day, they said, because the body burns through everything in this cold. I shoveled it in, hands shaking from the cold and effort. Mornings bled into physical conditioning until about 14 p.m. More runs, pull-ups on frozen bars. Gloves helped, but metal still bit. Endless burpees. Then came the survival stuff from 15 p.m. onward. We learned to build igloos, cutting blocks from hard-packed snow with entrenching tools, stacking them in spirals. Took hours, but once done, they held heat surprisingly well. We practiced starting fires with wet matches or ferro rods in the wind. Ate pine needles for vitamin C. Tasted like shit, but they swore it prevented scurvy. One drill stuck with me, hypothermia management. At 16:30 p.m. one afternoon, they made us strip to base layers and check each other for frostbite, white patches on fingers, toes, nose. If you spotted it, you rubbed snow on it gently, no heat at first. Then change wet layers every couple hours. Drink hot water constantly. They hammered it. Sweat is your enemy in the cold. It freezes and kills you faster. Conflict came quick. On day 3, November 18th, during the morning run at 05:45 a.m., my American-issue boots, I'd brought backups, weren't cutting it in the deep snow. They slipped. I fell behind. Volk slowed the group, turned, and barked, "American, move or die." I pushed, but my legs were jelly, finished last by a good minute. Felt like a failure. Back home, I'd smoke most guys on a ruck run. Here, I'm the weak link. That night in the barracks, lying on my cot at 2100 lights out, I stared at the ceiling while the stove popped. Maybe I don't belong here. These guys treat -30 like a mild day. Me, I'm fighting not to quit. But I didn't quit. The routine ground you down, but built something too. By the end of week 1, my body started adapting. Better circulation, less shivering. Week 2 ramped it up. Longer patrols at night, 2200 to 0200 sometimes. Learning to move quiet in snow, white camo blending us into the trees. We practiced ski movement, basic cross-country on wooden skis with skins for grip uphill. Carrying 30-kilogram packs, navigating by compass and whiteout. Tehran was everywhere. The Russians didn't complain. No whining about the cold. They just did. Volk would stand outside in just his base layer during breaks, smoking, while I was bundled up like a marshmallow. Bear told stories in broken English over dinner at 1900 one night. Chechnya winters, sleeping in snow holes for days. I listened, thinking, these guys have lost friends in real shit. I'm just cold. By week 2's end, December 1st or so, I could run the 10 kilometers without dying. Still slower, still hurting, but I finished with the group. Volk gave a nod, not praise, just acknowledgement. Maybe I'm not breaking yet. That was the shock phase, man. Pure adaptation. No glory, just surviving the cold and the routine. The real tests were coming. By the start of week 3, around December 8th or so, the initial shock had worn off a bit. My body was starting to adjust. Fewer shivers, better circulation in the fingers, lungs that didn't scream every time I sucked in that razor-sharp air. But just when I thought I was getting the hang of the cold, they shifted gears hard into the combat phase. That's when Systema came in, and man, it was a whole different animal. Volk announced it at 09 a.m. on December 9th, standing in the snow outside the barracks while we formed up. Temperature was hovering at -28 Celsius, light snow falling like static. "Today," he said, in that flat, no-nonsense English, "we fight. No gear, no pads. Learn to breathe, learn to feel." He stripped off his outer shell right there, down to base layer and fleece, like the cold was just background noise. The rest of the guys followed without a word. Me? I hesitated. These Russians are insane. I'm freezing in full kit. They're gonna spar half naked? We moved to a cleared circle in the snow, about 20 meters across, ringed by pine trees heavy with white. No mats, no ropes, just packed snow that crunched underfoot. Systema, as they taught it, wasn't like any martial art I'd seen. Back home, we had MCMAP, Marine Corps Martial Arts Program. Lots of techniques, strikes, grapples, controlled aggression. This was different. It was fluid, almost lazy-looking. Emphasis on relaxation, breathing, using the opponent's force against him. They kept saying, 25% strength, 75% flow. No big wind-ups, no power shots, just redirect, breathe, move. First drill, 09:15 a.m., basic strikes. Volk demonstrated slow-motion punches that looked soft but exploded on contact. He had us pair off, me with Bear, naturally, the big bastard. We started with light contact, breathing deep through the nose, exhaling slow on movement. The idea was to stay loose, let tension flow out with each breath. If you tensed up, you got hit harder. Bear swung a lazy hook. I tried to block hard like I would an MCMAP. He just rolled with it, redirected my arm, and tapped my ribs. Felt like a sledgehammer, even at half speed. By 10:30 a.m., we were rolling on the snow, literally. Falls were soft, rolling to absorb impact, using the ground like a spring. Snow got everywhere, down my neck, in my gloves, but the movement kept me warm. We practiced releases from grabs and chokes, using body weight and leverage instead of brute force. Volk walked the circle, correcting, breathe, relax shoulders, feel the energy. He'd grab someone from behind in a rear choke, demonstrate how to drop weight, rotate hips, and slip out. Simple, but it worked, even when the guy was twice her size. The real test came around 1400 a.m. that first day, full contact round. At 15:45 p.m., me versus Bear again. He was holding back, I could tell, but I pushed hard. Landed a solid hook to his side, felt good. He smiled, first time I'd seen that, then countered, swept my legs, mounted, rained light but precise strikes to body. I tapped. Nose was bleeding from an earlier elbow graze, nothing bad, but it stung in the cold. Volk stopped it. Enough. Good effort. But I felt the weight. I'm not like them. They stay calm when it hurts. I get angry. Anger makes me sloppy. That night in the barracks at 2100 a.m., lights low, stove crackling, I lay there replaying it. I thought combat was about power, aggression, being the hardest fitter. Here they teach you to let go, to feel the fight instead of forcing it. It's humbling. I'm starting to respect it, even if it pisses me off. Bear came over, handed me a mug of tea. "Tomorrow better," he grunted. No more words, just that. By the end of week 4, I wasn't winning spars, but I wasn't getting wrecked as bad. I could roll with a punch, redirect a grab, breathe through the pain. The cold didn't feel as personal anymore. It was just there, like the snow, the trees, the wind. And for the first time, I started thinking maybe I could learn something real here.
Week 5 hit like a freight train I never saw coming. By then, it was mid-December, around December 15th, 2024. The cold had settled in deep, averaging minus 35 Celsius during the day, dipping to minus 40 at night. The forest felt tighter, the snow heavier, like the whole taiga was pressing down on us. We'd been grinding through the routine for a month, and I was starting to feel like maybe I could hang. That was the mistake. Volk gathered us at 0600 a.m. outside the mess hall. No run that morning. Instead, he stood there in his usual ratnik gear, hood up against the wind, and said simply, "Long-range recon patrol. 72 hours. No food resupply, no fire after first night. Find the target grid, report back. You leave in 1 hour." He handed out the bare minimum, 1 combat knife each, entrenching tool, compass, map, waterproof matches, 1-liter canteen already freezing at the edges, and a single 7.62 by 39 blank round for signaling if shit went south. No real ammo, no GPS, no sat phone. Just us, the snow, and whatever we could carry on our backs, about 25 kilograms total, including sleeping bag and tarp. They split us into 4-man teams. I got paired with Bear, Sergey, and a quiet kid named Pavel who spoke almost no English. We rolled out at 07:15 a.m. in the gray half-light. The target was a marked point on the map about 18 kilometers northeast, deep in the taiga, supposed to simulate finding an enemy cache or downed pilot. Easy on paper. In reality, the snow was chest-deep in places, drifts like frozen waves. We moved single file, breaking trail, rotating the lead every 30 minutes because the guy in front burned twice the energy. First few hours were brutal but manageable. We reached the halfway mark around 12:30 p.m., took a 5-minute knee, sipped the last of our unfrozen water. Bear cracked a joke in Russian, the others laughed low. I just nodded, too focused on not falling behind. Then the weather turned. Around 14:45 p.m., the wind picked up, hard. Gusts of 25 to 30 meters per second, whiteout conditions in minutes. Visibility dropped to 5 meters. The snow came horizontal, stinging any exposed skin like needles. We pushed on, but the trail we'd broken filled in fast. By 16 p.m., I was lagging. My legs felt like concrete. Frost was building on my eyelashes. My beard was ice. Keep moving, Johnny. Just keep moving. At some point between 17 p.m. and 18 p.m., during a drift crossing, I slipped. Not bad, just lost footing under a hidden root under the snow. Went down hard, ruck slamming into my back. The others were maybe 20 meters ahead, but in the whiteout, I couldn't see shit. I yelled once, voice swallowed by the wind. Got up, started forward, but the wind had shifted. I was turned around. Compass said one way, gut said another. Panic started creeping in. I wandered for maybe an hour, snow up to my waist, wind screaming.
hands numb even in gloves. By 19:15 p.m., the light was gone completely, total dark except for the swirling white. Temperature was minus 38 Celsius, wind chill pushing minus 50. I dug a quick snow hole with the E-tool, crawled in, pulled the tarp over, zipped into my sleeping bag, shivering hard, teeth chattering so bad I thought they'd crack. That's when it really started going bad. Around 2100 p.m., my feet were on fire. Classic frostbite sign. I couldn't feel my toes anymore. Hands were claws. I tried rubbing them, but the friction just made it worse. Hypothermia was setting in fast. Slow thoughts, confusion, the weird warm feeling that makes you want to strip. I knew the signs from training, but knowing and feeling are different. I lay there thinking, this is it. I'm gonna die in a fucking snow hole in Siberia because I couldn't keep up. I don't know how long I was in there. Maybe 2 hours, maybe 3. Time blurred. I started talking to myself out loud. You're done, man. You're done. Then the tears came. Hot at first, then freezing on my face. I hadn't cried since I was a kid. Not in Afghanistan when we lost guys, not when my marriage almost ended. But here, alone in the dark, I broke. I thought I was tough. I thought I could handle anything. But I'm not like them. I'm not Volk. I'm not Bear. I'm just scared. I don't remember falling asleep, but I woke to someone digging, shovel scraping snow, then a gloved hand yanking the tarp back. Volk's face, scar lit by the red beam of his headlamp, no expression, just action. He dragged me out and threw my arm over his shoulder and started hauling. I was dead weight. Legs wouldn't work right. He didn't speak, just moved. We covered maybe 5 kilometers like that, him pulling, half carrying me through the storm, wind hauling. By the time we hit the camp perimeter around 3:45 a.m., I was barely conscious. The others were already back, found the grid hours earlier. They'd reported me missing at 20:30 p.m. Volk had gone out alone. They got me into the banya, hot steam room around 4:25 a.m. Bear and Sergey stripped me, rubbed circulation back into my limbs with snow first, then warm towels. Volk stood in the corner, silent, watching. Frostbite was bad on toes, black tips on 3 of them, but they caught it early enough up. No amputation, just weeks of pain. Later that morning, after I'd thawed enough to sit, Volk came in with tea at 9:30 a.m., sat across from me on the bench. First time he'd ever done that. I looked at him, really looked, and said, voice cracked, I thought I was tough, but I'm not like you. He stared into his mug for a long time. Then, quiet, no one is born tough. Tough is made in Siberia, in pain, in failure. You failed today. You will fail again, but you are still here. He paused. That is enough for now. I didn't have words, just nodded. Inside, I was still shaking, but not from cold anymore, from something else. Shame, maybe. Relief. Gratitude. I almost died out there, and the guy who pulled me back is the same one who looked at me like trash on day 1. He didn't have to come, but he did. That was the breaking point, man. The moment everything cracked open. I wasn't an elite operator anymore. I wasn't even a Marine raider in that second. I was just a guy who got lost and scared and almost quit living. And somehow, that made the rest of it possible. After the night I almost became a frozen statistic, everything changed. Not in some dramatic Hollywood way. No big speeches, no sudden brotherhood montage. Just quiet shifts. The way people looked at me. The way I looked at myself. December 20th, 2024. I woke up late, around 9:45 a.m., in the infirmary bunk, feet wrapped in thick bandages, toes throbbing like they'd been hammered. The frostbite was 2nd degree on 3 toes, 1st degree on the rest. Blackened tips, swollen. But the docs, they had a field surgeon on site, said I'd keep them all if I stayed off them for a week and did the treatments. No walking patrols, no runs, just rest, elevation, and twice daily sessions in the banya. Volk came by at 10:30 a.m. with a mug of tea and a small jar of some kind of herbal salve. Smelled like pine and menthol. He set it down without a word, nodded once, and left. That was it. No lecture, no I told you so, just the salve and the silence. The banya became my world for those first days. Russian sauna, wood-fired, temperatures pushing 90 to 100 Celsius inside, while snow piled against the outside walls. At 14 p.m. every day, Bear and Sergey would half-carry me in there. We'd strip down, sit on the cedar benches, pour water over hot stones until the steam was thick enough to choke on. Then out into the snow, naked except for felt boots, roll in a fresh drift, rub circulation back, scream from the shock of it, then back in, over and over. The first time, at 14:15 p.m. on December 21st, I thought I'd die from the contrast. Hot to freezing in seconds, blood rushing, skin burning, heart hammering. But after the third cycle, something shifted. The pain in my toes eased, my breathing slowed. I started to understand why they loved it. It wasn't just heat, it was reset, body and mind. While I recovered, the others kept training, but they made space for me in the evenings. Dinner at 19 p.m. became the bonding time. The mess hall was warm, low lights, long wooden tables scarred from years of use. Borscht, pelmeni, black bread, pickled everything. Sometimes a little vodka, small glasses, never more than 2. They'd talk. Not war stories at first, just small shit. Bear liked American football. He'd watched old Super Bowl reruns. Sergey collected knives. Pavel drew sketches of the forest in a little notebook. One night, December 24th, Christmas Eve back home, at 20:15 p.m., Volk stayed longer than usual. He poured himself a shot, raised it slow, and said, "To the ones who didn't come back." Everyone drank. Then he looked at me across the table. "Tell us about your wars, American." I hadn't talked much about it before, but that night, with the stove popping and the wind rattling the windows, I did. Sanguine, Fallujah outskirts, the night we lost 2 guys to an IED. How it felt coming home and feeling like a ghost. They listened. No interruptions. When I finished, Bear just nodded. Same, different place, same ghosts. Volk spoke next, quiet, measured. Chechnya, 2000s, losing half his squad in Grozny. Syria, 2015, watching friends burn in a downed chopper. He didn't embellish, just facts. Then he looked at me again. "You almost died here, but you didn't. That matters." I didn't know what to say. These guys have buried more brothers than I'll ever know, and they still get up at 5:30 a.m. every day, still run in the snow, still teach a soft American how not to die. It wasn't pity, it was respect, earned the hard way. By week 7, early January 2025, I was back on my feet, toes still tender but walking. They eased me in slow, ski patrol drill starting at 10 a.m., cross-country skis with climbing skins for grip on hills. We carried 40 kg packs, moved in formation through the forest, practicing night movement with white light discipline. No headlamps unless necessary. Learn to see shapes in the dark, feel the trail with poles. One afternoon, January 5th, around 15:30 p.m., we did a mock patrol. Temperature minus 37 degrees Celsius. We stopped at a frozen river, ice thick enough to walk on. Volk had us practice submersion drills. Break a hole, submerge to the neck for 30 seconds, climb out, roll in snow, change layers fast. I went third. When I came up gasping, lungs on fire, Bear was there with a dry towel and a grin. Good American, not dead yet. That night in the barracks at 9:30 p.m., lights low, I sat on my cot cleaning my knife, the one they'd issued me. Volk walked by, stopped, pulled a small folding knife from his pocket, Spetsnaz issue, worn handle, etched with a wolf head, and set it on my blanket. "For when you go home, remember Siberia." Then he walked away. I stared at that knife for a long time. I came here thinking I was the tough one, the one with combat experience, the one who'd teach them something. Instead, they taught me what real endurance looks like. Not yelling, not medals, just showing up. Every damn day, even when it hurts, even when you lose. I wasn't one of them, never would be, but for the first time, I didn't feel like an outsider. I felt like someone who'd survived long enough to be invited to the table. That was recovery, not just the body, the mind, the part of me that thought I had to be unbreakable to matter. Turns out, breaking was the only way to start putting myself back together right.
By the beginning of week 8, January 12th, 2025, the camp felt different. Not warmer. The thermometer still read minus 34 Celsius most mornings. But the air between us had changed. I wasn't the American anymore. I was just Johnny.
or Ramirez, or sometimes the guy who didn't die. It wasn't spoken, but it was there. Volk called the final phase at 06 a.m. on January 13th. We stood in formation, snow crunching under boots, breath freezing into clouds. He didn't raise his voice. Integration test. 48 hours, 100 kilometers forced march. Full gear, no resupply. Cross the river twice. Reach the extraction point. Fail, and you walk back alone. 100 kilometers. In deep snow, with 45-kilogram packs, through forest, over frozen streams, up ridges, down gullies, in winter Siberia. The Russians didn't blink. I felt my stomach drop, but I kept my face straight. You almost died once. You're still here. Finish this. We left at 7:30 a.m., 12 of us total. 8 Spetsnaz, the 2 Brits, the Canadian, and me. Volk led. Bear brought up the rear. No talking. Just movement. Skis for the first 20 clicks to save energy, then boots when the terrain got too broken. The pace was steady, about 4 kilometers an hour in good snow, slower in drifts. Every hour we stopped for 2 minutes. Drink, check frostbite, adjust layers. By 12:45 p.m. we'd covered 22 kilometers. Lunch was frozen energy bars thawed against our bodies, a handful of nuts, and water from canteens we kept inside our jackets. No fire, no hot food, just calories and motion. The first river crossing came at 15:20 p.m. Ice was thick, maybe 40 centimeters, but they still made us drill it like it could break. Chop a hole with the E-tool, submerge to shoulders for controlled breathing practice, climb out, roll in snow, change base layer fast. I went first in my group. Hit the water at 15:28 p.m. Shock like 1,000 knives, lungs seized. But I counted breaths, slow in, slow out. Climbed out shaking, rolled, changed. Bear handed me dry gloves without a word. Felt like a win. Night fell around 16:30 p.m. We kept moving under white light NVGs. They let us use basic ones for the test. Temperature dropped to minus 39 Celsius. Wind died, which made it quieter and colder. The silence was heavy. Only the crunch of boots, the creak of packs, the hiss of breath. We dug snow holes around 22:15 p.m. 4-man shelters, quick and dirty. Slept in shifts, 2 awake, 2 down. I took first watch with Sergey from 22:30 p.m. to 00:30 a.m. We sat back to back, scanning the dark. He spoke low. "You good now. After the storm, you fight different." I just nodded. He's right. I'm not charging in angry anymore. I'm thinking, breathing, surviving. Second day started at 4:45 a.m. No dawn, just a slow graying of the white. Legs were screaming. Blisters under the socks, toes still tender from the frostbite, but we moved. Crossed the second river at 11:10 p.m. Same drill, colder water, slower reactions. I almost slipped climbing out. Pavel grabbed my arm, pulled me up. No drama, just a nod. The last 30 kilometers were the worst, ridge after ridge. Snow so deep we post-holed, lifting knees to chest every step. Pace dropped to 2.5 kilometers an hour. By 18 p.m., the sun was gone again, and exhaustion set in deep. Hallucinations started, shadows moving that weren't there, voices whispering. I kept my eyes on Bear's pack in front of me. One step, then another. We hit the extraction point, a small clearing marked by 3 orange chem lights at 3:12 a.m. on January 15th. Volk was already there, leaning against a tree, smoking. He checked his watch, looked at us one by one. No smile, just done. I dropped my pack, legs gave out. Sat in the snow, chest heaving. The Brits and Canadian collapsed next to me. The Russians? They stood. Tired, sure, but standing. Bear offered me a hand up. I took it. Back at camp by truck at 6:45 a.m. Hot borscht waiting. I ate slow, hands shaking. Volk walked over at 7:20 a.m., put a hand on my shoulder. First time he'd ever touched me outside of necessity. Not bad, American. That was it. 2 words, but coming from him, it felt like a medal. Later that day, around 14 p.m. in the banya, the whole group sat together, steam thick, no talking at first. Then Bear started laughing, low, rumbling, told a story about the time he fell through ice in Dagestan and had to crawl 5 clicks naked. Everyone laughed. Even Volk cracked the smallest smile. I looked around at those faces, scarred, tired, calm, and felt something settle. I didn't beat them, I didn't match their pace, but I finished, with them. That's the integration. Not becoming Spetsnaz, just earning the right to stand in the same steam. The test wasn't about being the fastest or the strongest. It was about not quitting when every part of you screamed to stop. And for the first time in my life, I understood that kind of endurance isn't loud. It's quiet. It's showing up broken and still moving forward.
The last days in camp blurred together. January 16th to January 20th, 2025. No more big tests. Just clean up, gear turn in, final medical checks, and the slow wind down before extraction. The temperature stayed vicious, -32 to -38 Celsius every day. But by then, the cold felt less like an enemy and more like part of the furniture. We did light work, breaking down snow shelters we'd built, cleaning weapons. AKs don't like extreme cold. You learn to keep them oiled and never let condensation build. Packing out trash so the Taiga stayed pristine. Mornings still started at 05:30 a.m. with a short run. Only 5 kilometers now. Almost gentle. Evenings were quiet. Lots of sitting in the mess hall over tea, sharing cigarettes outside the banya, listening to the wind. On January 18th at 19:45 p.m., they threw a small farewell dinner. Not fancy, just extra meat in the borscht, more black bread, a couple bottles of vodka passed around. Volk stood up at 20:30 p.m., glass in hand. The room went quiet. "To the winter," he said, "to the cold that kills weak men and makes the rest stronger, to the ones who came and the ones who left pieces of themselves here." We drank. Then he looked straight at me, the Brits, the Canadian. "You are not Spetsnaz. You never will be. But you walked the same snow. You bled in the same cold. That is enough." No applause, just nods, quiet agreement. I raised my glass back, didn't say anything. What was there to say? The next morning, January 19th at 07 a.m., the Kamaz trucks rolled up. Same beat-up ones that brought us in. We loaded gear, said the short goodbyes. Bear hugged me, bear hug literally, lifted me off the ground for a second, laughed. Sergei shook my hand hard, slipped me a small patch from his sleeve, wolf head on black. Pavel just nodded, gave a small salute. Volk was last. He handed me the knife he'd given me weeks earlier, the Spetsnaz folder with the etched wolf. Then he pulled a second one from his pocket, identical, and pressed it into my palm. "2," he said. "One for you, one for your son when he is old enough. Tell him his father walked Siberia and came back." I didn't have kids yet. He knew that, but the words hit anyway. I swallowed hard, nodded. "Thank you, Major." He shook my hand once, firm, brief, then turned away. No more words. The truck pulled out at 8:15 a.m. I watched the camp disappear behind the trees. Snow falling soft, pines heavy and silent. Felt like leaving a piece of myself behind in that frozen ground. The flight home was long. Novosibirsk to Moscow, Moscow to the States. Landed back at Pendleton on January 22nd, 2025. Warm California sun felt wrong, too bright, too soft. I walked off the plane in my civvies, still wearing the Spetsnaz knife on my belt under the jacket. Felt heavier than it should. It's been almost a year now, January 11th, 2026. I'm back in the fleet, training new raiders, doing the day-to-day. But every time it gets cold, even just a winter morning in California, I feel it again. The bite in the lungs, the weight of the ruck, the silence of the taiga. I don't tell this story to many people. Most wouldn't get it. They'd want hero shit. How many Russians did you beat in sparring? Did you outmarch them? The answer is no. I didn't beat anybody. I didn't outlast them. I just survived. And sometimes that's the only victory that matters.
I keep the 2 knives in a drawer now. One clean, one still has a little Siberian dirt in the creases. Every once in a while, I take them out, open and close them, feel the worn handles. Remember Volk's voice in the dark. Tough is made in Siberia, in pain, in failure. I'm not the same guy who stepped off that plane in Novosibirsk. I'm not harder in the chest-thumping way. I'm quieter. I complain less. When shit gets hard, training, life, whatever, I breathe slow. I keep moving. I don't need to yell about it. That's what Siberia gave me. Not muscles, not medals, just the knowledge that you can break completely, get pulled back from the edge, and still stand up the next day. If you ever find yourself in a place where the cold wants to kill you, remember this. It's not about being unbreakable. It's about being willing to shatter and keep going anyway. That's the real lesson. And that's the end of the story, man. Thanks for listening. Grab another beer. I'm done talking.